What's up? You know, about a year or so ago, maybe over a year now, James Wolfe, the angry video game nerd, who we all know is commonly known for his review of retro games from the 80s and the 90s, and maybe a little bit of 2000s, and some from the 70s and even 60s. But we also know that at times he likes to review movies. Sometimes he does like a multi-part thing where he reviews movies like Star Wars and does it, and sometimes he does this sometimes for his own little benefit, or for Spike TV, or even just for Cinemaster, which he owns. But there's one review he did last year in 2 parts, where he was known as the Angry Movie Nerd. And it's a movie that he considers is the worst of the worst. Even Nostalgia Critic, when he reviewed all 3 of the movies in this series, said that this was the worst of the worst. As a matter of fact, Nostalgia Critic went as far as to say, let's watch it, and then put something that says 5 minutes later, and then we see him crying and wailing in a bathtub, going cuckoo, and then saying it's the worst thing that was ever made. What's the movie I'm talking about? Well, although you probably can't see it on here, on this disc, it's on here though. It is, if you could see it clearly, which I seriously doubt, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. That's right. Now I don't have the cassette tape. I don't know if it's packed away somewhere here in the garage or if it's, you know, back in the Midwest with my father. Anyway, they said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was the worst thing they ever saw. Angry Video Game Nerd has said that the animatronics were one of the worst parts of it, because they looked like sock puppets, the way they were talking real fast. Well, I think I got a theory about this. That theory is, it took 2 years, from 91 to 93, before we got the 3rd film. The reason it took 2 years is because they were working on the new costumes, not because they were probably bringing in new characters that we knew and wanted to see. Also the fact that they wanted to try something a little different. And I think maybe kind of keep the story more in the real world, if you will. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, how is time travel in the real world? Well, you gotta remember, back in the early 90s and throughout the 80s and 70s, everybody said that in the future, as we hit the 21st century and even on beyond, that time travel eventually was going to become a reality. So, I guess the writers wanted to kind of set it in reality, saying that this still could be a possibility. Even if it's still some ancient artifact that, you know, like what April buys in a flea market. Anyway, they also say that it doesn't have the feel that the other 2 have. Like at the beginning of the first one, we don't even really see the turtles until about maybe 5 minutes into the film. 5 or something minutes into the film. You know, all we see is April, the city, you know, and everything, her getting mugged, and then all we see is Raphael's son knocking out the light, and then we just get a glimpse of Raphael opening up the sewer lid. But that's it. We don't see anything else for about 5-6 minutes. The same could be said for Ninja Turtles 2. You know, we didn't get to see the turtles until about 5 minutes in. But we didn't see them just jump out, you know, from the shadows and here they are. No, instead we see them right obscurely in the background, kind of blurred out, and then they jump up and then in comes the title. The one complaint that Video Game Nerd, and I'm sure Critic and anybody else would have, is when we came to the 3rd film and they popped out of nowhere, they didn't pop out of nowhere. Instead, they just appeared. That's it. They just appeared. As soon as they just appeared, here's the title, that's it. And all they're doing is doing this, you know, dance to ZZ Top kind of deal. And I agree that might piss some people off. I'm not going to deny that. But you got to realize something too. They didn't you got to realize that it's the directors. It's the writers and the directors. Now I'm pretty sure, I really haven't seen it. I haven't really read on who wrote what, but I'm pretty sure as the writers went on, that the different writers, wanted to come up with different scenarios. And the directors, or different directors, they wanted to come up with different scenarios. And ignore that in the background, that's my bird. That's my mom's bird in the background. Anyway, they wanted to come up with different scenarios. Now I'm pretty sure that the first two writers, the writer of the second film, said, you know, the idea in the first film kind of worked, but let's work it out a little bit to where you do see them, but they're kind of blurred out, and you don't really see them until they jump up, you know. But the other writer of the third film probably thought, you know, that's been done. How are we going to do that if we're going to set it in Japan? What do we do? Well, the writer of the third film obviously said, well, let's just not do that anymore. Let's just have them appear, and let's open it up with the samurai fighting feudal Japan, and then when we transition to the present and we go into the home and everything, let's just have them appear. Let's just open it up with them doing the kind of like normal workout or training routine and dancing to ZZ Top and doing things like that. But again, that was probably one of the main reasons, the fact that we had different directors and writers. If we had almost similar people, if the writers were similar or had seen basically you get on the, let me put it like this. The writer of the second film obviously saw the first film and had an idea. Even though he had to tone down the violence and everything, he figured the best way to do it is to kind of obscure them a little bit, then have them jump up on screen. The third one, though, is more like, the writer, like I said, the writer probably thought that was been used, we should try something different. If it's going to be back in time, how's that supposed to help? Well, you get the idea. Basically, all depended on who was the writer and the directors. And apparently the writer and directors of the third film we could do it the same way the other two did, but not really. We had to try something different. And I think in a way with the writer, and with just my opinion, I think what the writer of the third film wanted to do was try to keep it closer to what fans had sort of complained about a lot. Now, what I'm talking about is, even though the first two films were tremendous, the one thing fans complained about is there were not many references or closeness or any kind of likeness to the cartoons. Usually in the cartoons, when we open up an episode, we're mostly going into the sewers to where the turtles are. Even now in the newer series, we have that at times. But you didn't have that in the other two films. Really. You didn't open it up like that. And that's what kind of pissed fans off a lot, I believe. The fact that it wasn't referenced. And I think this writer said, well, it might be a little bit more different. It might be having them go back in time. But if we could just, have them just appear doing a normal workout and everything in the sewer, like fans would see in the cartoons, and so be it. Yeah, we opened up in feudal Japan, like I said, but when you go in there, you don't just have the turtles, attack and everything. You just have the turtles at home, showing them what they're doing. And I think that's what the writer wanted to do. He saw what sometimes the cartoon looked like. He wanted to go in that direction. Excuse me one moment. Like I said, he wanted to go in that direction. And also, I'm pretty sure he felt as though, fans would like to have some of the other characters, villainous characters come in, but he thought, sometimes you gotta, switch it up a little bit. And then let's not forget, the cartoon also had some original villains, past and present. And at the time, it was the 90s, 80s cartoon. So he figured, I'm going to bring in some original villains from the past and see what happens. So overall, my take on it is the fact that, yeah, it wasn't the best, but you have to understand. You have to understand, the writer kind of had a lot on his table, and I guess in a way he just wanted to keep it a little bit more realistic, and also at the same time a little closer to the cartoon series. But I feel, I thought it was a good movie. I mean, I'm not trying to say it was the best movie. It was a fair movie. Let's just put it that way. So, overall, I thought it was good, and that's just my response to Video Game Nerd and even critics' review on it. So, you got your own responses, comments? Let me know.